Left out a pretty essential part of Todd's build, which was really dumb of me to to not talk about, since it's honestly the most important aspect of that early mid game. It's the idea of abandoning preparations against a 4-gate. Let me just do this as swiftly as possible. It's at this point we did this scout, so he's either not 4-gating, or I should say not doing a good 4-gate. He's doing something tech-based, or he's doing a really shitty 4-gate. If we came in here and saw 1 gate, 1 gas, and a lot of chrono saved up, it's at this point when we're at 28 supply that we can actually go gateway, gateway, and then build a sentry right now. If we chrono boost non-stop, what'll happen is we'll have 1 sentry and we can delay the 4-gate with our 2 stalkers as much as we want. And then these gateways will finish really close to 6 minutes, and we can actually do another sentry warping with this gateway, and then a zealot, and then we're okay. So in other words, around 4:45, 4:30 to 4:45 is where you do your preparation for a 4-gate. These 2 stalkers are going to help a lot in pushing it back. That's really important to bring up, because we saw Todd only build 1 gateway, only build 2 gateways after he built his 1-star gate, and then go straight into a robo. So we want to have this idea of, do I need to prepare for a 4-gate? Do I need to prepare? Do I need to prepare? No. Okay, cool. I'm just going to go straight in tech. Yes. And that's the money thing. So now what I want to do is I want to hop over to Parting's build, which will probably take like 2 seconds. It's really easy. Just want to pop over to this, and then we'll do the reback review. This is just one of the simplest ways to play ever. So we are now seeing all the various things get built. Alright, we do gate, gas, core, and then gas. I like delaying this gas to actually 19. Parting delays it to 18. And the reason you delay it just a smidge, even though you can afford it, I'll actually come back and just show that a little bit more closely, because I think I did that kind of fast. So here is the cybernetics core going down. There's the probe building. Right now we can build the gas. We can build it. See, we have the money. We can build it. And right around 18 is when we're actually going to build it. Right around when we can actually get that 18th probe started. Delaying this just a smidgy bitch. A smidgy bitch? I meant to say a smidge or a bit, and I just said a smidgy bitch. Delay it just a smidgy bitch, and you'll have just enough money. Excellent. Perfect. My mouth is well filtered as a result of my powerful brain. I love the chat. You guys are awesome. Alright, cool. Man, that was so stupid. Okay, cool. And at 19, we ended up building our 2nd gateway. So, there's the 3 that will be tossed into this gas. What works quite nicely is having like some kind of 2 in gas for a little while, but the slightly technical part is trying to make sure that you don't over-gas early to where you have like almost none mining. But generally trying to stay, I'm going to remove you, generally trying to stay above 13 is pretty reasonable in these early game situations. So, alright, cool, we build 1 stalker, we start chrono boosting away, we build a 2nd stalker, and then you know what we do? We build a 3rd stalker. All the while chrono boosting like a madman on this cybernetics core. Following these 2 stalkers, we just build 2 sentries. Here we go. Sentry 1 and Sentry 2 can actually... there's actually a build that Oz does where he spends an extra chrono boost on the probe, delaying this just long enough to sneak in 2 sentries. But in this case, what Parting's going to do is right after these duders pop out, these fine stalker gentlemen, as he's getting this warp gate up, which you'll notice is quite fast, it's like usual for warp gate fast, goes straight for the Nexus, warps in a robo facility, and then bam, sentry. This is such an easy build to do. And then max chrono boost on the probes, and then you know what he's going to do? Build another gateway and go sentry. Sentry. Come on, sentry. Alright, cool. This is a really easy to time build. It's easy to do. You can do it all the time, like with 100% effectiveness, even if you wobble it a little bit. The only thing to note is that this early robo facility must begin an immortal. You must begin an immortal at this point in time. Otherwise, you lose to a lot of stuff. There's a ton of stuff you lose to. And also what Parting's trying to do with this opening is with those first 3 stalkers, he is going to be trying very aggressively to push back any proxy probes as much as possible. That's how he deals with a 4-gate. And if for some reason a 4-gate happens, remember those chronos we were spending on this Nexus after we built this Nexus? Yeah, this is actually the way to deal with the 4-gate. Because if the 4-gate comes, you cancel this, and then you have your robo facility, your 4 sentries to delay, and you win because you have a better economy down the road. Cool. So look at how easy this is. You're going 3-gate robo for a while. So now we've seen the Phoenix. I don't think there's anything wrong with building this Immortal. I mean, it's not useful against the Phoenix, but it'll help against a good chunk of things. And yeah, just generally, chrono boosting away. The build has been presented to us. So at this point, you're just going to do the obvious. Make sure you have enough stalkers spread around and get the Twilight Council. So you probably heard me say when we were looking at this from ToD's point of view that you don't really have enough gas to get a lot of stalkers and blink after doing a Sentry Immortal opening. And we're seeing this happen from Parting's point of view. This is one of the reasons why, again, near and dear to my heart is a max Phoenix. Just chrono the shit out of it, like, super hard. Because you can have, what, it's 848? Yeah, you can have, like, 6-7 Phoenixes done by now. It's really fun. But yeah, we'll just speed it along, and then I'll just start doing it from both angles. Slowly adding on. 3 gas with Blink Stalker Immortal is very common. Really good. Really good mixture. You're seeing Parting's cash floating low. And of course, slowly adding on the gateways. It can be very tempting to go for Robo right away. But if you've gone it can be tempting to go Colossus right away. However, you've already spent all this money going Immortals, and then you backed up and went Blink Stalker heavily. It's better to invest in your Blink Stalker play more than it is to sort of revert back and then sort of awkwardly twist back into this Immortal play. There's actually some nice timings that you can hit that we will see. And Parting, like any good Protoss, not just getting Blink for the sake of Blink, but getting Blink to do a timing push. And let me also further note, this timing push is strengthened due to the fact that we have 5 gateways ready to do a warp-in round back at home in case the Phoenix come back to ruin our day. But most always, this will cause a pushback. So now, I want to take a brief moment to review. Thus far in the daily, in part number 1, we looked at this Phoenix play from ToD, talked a little bit about it, and most importantly, how to get there. Phoenix are really good at map control and sort of cause some pretty necessary switches for us to building Immortals. And with other builds, it's kind of normal to halt at 2-ish Immortals, but if we're going Phoenix, it's completely reasonable to get 3, even 4 Immortals, because we know how many Blink Stalkers our opponent is going to make. And he's probably going to be transitioning into some sort of Colossus tech down the road. So the Immortals are going to be very useful then as well. So it's a really nice way to avoid us getting too Stalker heavy. Parting, we just saw a really easy build. Oh, it's so easy. You just 2-gate expand with Robo, 3-gate, and then just do what's intuitive. So at this point in time, ToD is going straight for the Colossus. But I will note that for almost any push that happens between 10 and 13 minutes in this matchup, hell, even as early as 9 to 13 minutes, Walling off with gateways is one of the most effective anti-loss techniques. A lot of times players will see that you're doing this Phoenix Immortal thing, and they'll get over-eager, and they'll try to like bust you down with Zealot Sentry with just some Stalkers, or likewise Phoenix players who open Phoenix and then go mass 4-gate Zealot Sentry all in. You just wall in with gateways. Phoenixes are really bad at lifting buildings. They can't even lift it a smidgy bitch. It's so good. So these wall-offs, I think, are increasingly going to be an essential piece to the defensive puzzle in this matchup. And it aligns well with Todd's researching of the Colossus. So, I think Parting's doing a reasonable thing, putting on the pressure. I like this play as well. While he was away, he went Forge Robo Bay, so now he's going to be just teching towards Colossus as well. But this is the third phase of the early aggression. Remember, there's the Cannon Rush proxy phase, then there's something like a 4-gate, and then there's these threats, the big mid-game threats. And Todd is doing the usual preparations, the walling off with the gateways, having some sentries, but most of all these immortals and buildings are keeping him alive. But for the late game, Todd, as most players do, is going for the double robo. It is very tempting to go double robo on 3 gates. To just open up 3 gates, then start going Colossus, and then start really going Colossus. However, I just want to steer almost everyone here to just going for gateways 4 and 5 first, before you end up going for this robo. Colossi kind of suck unless there's gateway units underneath them. Yeah, sure, if you get to like 12 Colossi, you might want fewer gateway units underneath just so you can remax your supply and stuff like that. But it's too tempting to start the Colossus production way too high, way too early. So I really like this from Todd. Of course, getting the plus upgrades. I do think these Phoenixes could probably have been back home doing some lifts, but I like the fact that Todd has not actually gone bonkers doing the lifting. He's killed off some workers, but not, you know, like 25 or something like that. So I honestly find it quite cool. That's a demonstration that the Phoenix strategy doesn't require you to go nutty nuts by any means. And one of the reasons why we love Colossus, they're just so good. So at this point in the game, I must stop. We've just hit 15 minutes, and it's from here to the end that it's a beautiful, beautiful game. Up to now, it's been certainly cool. Oh wow, we're a little halfway through the daily. Fantastic. Ordinarily, Protoss vs. Protoss at this 15-minute phase is in one of 2 categories. In one category, you are still 1 base versus 1 base, and you're on the verge of killing one another, right, with huge blink plays. But both players are sort of stabilized, so we're not there. So the second most common place to be in the matchup is that one of you started mass Colossus production earlier than the other one. So in that first big engagement that's going to happen around 18-19 minutes, my 7 Colossus army will always be your 3 Colossus army. This very frequently happens. And this is why a lot of people kind of go, oh, stupid, terrible match. I hate this matchup. It's actually quite easy to get to the point where you are never dying to that he had too much Colossus production. Because no matter what, you're going to get your 5 gateways up, and then just be aware that you're probably going to be going 2 or 1 robo, expand, and then a second robo. The Colossus really is important. The only circumstance in which you could maybe get away with just doing the 1 robo is if you made certain you were attacking quite aggressively with your larger gateway army and your 3 Colossus, or your 2 Colossus versus his 3 or 4, or if you're getting a lot of the Archons up. But Todd, as you're seeing, is just doing these nice gateway walls to sort of zone units in there. And you want a blink over, because then all his units are trapped and he dies. So all you're really going to be doing with your money at this phase in the game is going expand Colossus, as Todd is doing, and as Parting is similarly doing. He's massing, I would say, a reasonable amount of these gateway units. If we come to the army supply tab, we see Parting has a little bit bigger of an army. However, ToD has 2 more Colossi, which means everything. Having a lot more Zealots and Stalkers is only kind of when your opponent is this well defended. ToD cannot attack, though. So this is kind of an interesting position. What is a Protoss player to do? ToD, because he is defensive, and because he went for this earlier Colossus play, and he's very defensively positioned, he must stay back and be a defender until he gets close to max. Parting, who got more gateways earlier, as you will note, has either even or less Colossus the whole time, but more gateway units. So Parting's going to be much more comfortable in these big ground engagements here or around here. So Parting can expand farther away and actually expand more rapidly to places like up here. This is kind of like mutiling. If I'm going mutiless Zergling, I can certainly do a ton of the counterattack, hitting you in a lot of places at once, so I can expand far away. It's the same if you have a superior gateway army. And one of the reasons why I really like that Parting is following this up with a charge. Starting to get more observers, getting the upgrades, getting some Colossus, but we also see the Templar Archives. Yep, there it is. No, where was the Templar Archives? Where was it? There it is. Getting the Templar Archives for some Zealot Archon. You don't want too many Colossus is a bit dangerous in the matchup. If your gateway army underneath loses a little too quickly, and especially if your opponent has Archons, all your Colossus will be shooting at my Archons, allowing the rest of my army to dart up under. So if you have the Archon edge, you can step into those center engagements much more readily. But I think, per usual, one of the worst positions to be in is when you are playing defensively like this, and you have no way to apply pressure to your opponent. None whatsoever. And that's what I think is brilliant about this Dark Shrine transition. By going Dark Shrine, obviously we can put the pressure on, but it's a smooth, simple way to transition into a decent amount of Archons. It'll certainly be heavier on our mineral burden, but we don't really care too much about being wasteful of minerals in this matchup in the late game, because what are we really going to do? Like Zealots? With all our money? Just go mass frickin' Zealot? Ugh. That's going to be pretty icky. So both players building cannons to be able to detect properly. Parting as a cannon here and a cannon here. Is maxing out on the gateways. And I think a very reasonable number of Colossi is 7 to 8. And generally most of the rest. Archons, Stormers. So let's see, we are right now at 19 minutes into part 2, so we're going to be going for another 3-4 minutes in this mid-late game. And just sort of step in to the more interesting late game situations. One of the advantages of going Phoenix now is it makes it really easy to go Mothership later. Mothership is the big, important addition to this mixture. And we waited this long to move out because we're pretty sure our opponent had a bigger army this whole time because he had a gateway-based army. But as we max out, we do have a better composition as ToD. He has more Zealots and Stalkers, which are okay in late-game mixtures, but they're not ideal. We have more Immortals and more Colossus, which are much better in late-game mixtures. And we have a Dark Templar, which is just kind of totally kick-ass. I can't find it, though. I don't know where it is. I see 2 DTs in production. Yeah, just kind of expanding in center, and I like, again, that Parting is taking these extra bases. This is one of these odd situations that's going to feel very Mexican standoffy, and that's okay. There's actually nothing at all wrong with just waiting for your opponent to make a mistake. And I think this is also where most of the losses in late game PvP happens, where a player gets into ToD's position is just like, and just sort of blasts it all in. Getting more gateways, always good, always good. Getting more gateways here, always good, always good. But I want to defend the statement, always good. I don't just want to be like, yeah, build it. Here's the weird spot that's going to happen in part 3. In late game PvP, we can start to close our eyes, rip off our glasses, and envision our money mix. What we saw after defending that weird mid-game push type thing, ToD was kind of just forced to be defensive. And he's able to get his money mix of just having way more Colossi up. So now we have 9 Colossi as ToD. Once our army dies, which is probably inevitable, we're certainly going to get there, we can't replenish back to 9 Colossi quickly at all, but we can replenish Zealot Archon quickly. So weirdly in this matchup, it's very common for it to be very passive in the mid-game and suddenly get a lot more aggressive coming up right now that it's possible for armies to get exchanged. So ramping up the gateway count prepares for that transition into the more aggressive Zealot Archon phase. So both players are going to have to be very aware and careful of how they place these expansions, because what we're going to see is that Parting, by expanding up to that top left side, create a little bit of a vulnerability for himself that ToD's going to be able to exploit, especially when he gets this mothership out